ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ fateh. Welcome to this segment of Khoj Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Our recitation continues from Rag Dhanasari, Mahalla Tija, compositions of the third Nanak, Guru Amar Das. The recitation stanza by stanza. Dhanasari Mahalla Tija, जो हर सेवा है तिन बल जाऊं, तिन हृदय साच सच्चा मुख नाऊं। साचो साच संभाले हो दुख जाए, साचे शब्द वसै मन आए। जो हर सेवा तिन बल जाऊं, I am beholden to those tin Bal Jau who serve the Har Self, Jo Har Sevah. And why is that? The next line explains it. Tin Hirday Sach, for the eternal truth abides in their heart. We are doing a literal translation. Sacha mukh now. So in their heart abides the eternal truth, and its wisdom is expressed through their mouth, through their mind. Sacha mukh now. Sacho sach samale ho. When one is thus oriented to the truth, samalo, dukh jai, sorrow disappears. Sacha sabd vase man aaye. Then the true word, the wisdom of the Guru, settles into the mind. So Guruji is saying that he adores those, Tin Bal Jau, who engage in the service of the Har Self because they are authentic beings. Within them resides the authenticity of truth, and that authenticity vibrates through their expression. In other words, there is a coherence of between their inner state and their outer expression. What is inside flows outside. Sorrow departs in such a state. Why? Because suffering essentially thrives or is born because of inner conflict and inner fragmentation. So when the mind becomes stable, when the mind is in concord, sacho sach samale, then, only then, can the wisdom, Naam, enter the mind. The mind has to be settled, stable. In the Rahau, the Guru says, Gurbani Sun. Actually, it is Gurbani Suni. That is, having heard Gurbani, or through the hearing of Gurbani, the inspired speech of the Guru, which is divine speech because it flows through the Guru, mail gavai. So when the mind hears the teachings of the Guru, it loses its impurities. Sahaje har naam man vasai. Then, with spontaneous ease, sahaje, Naam consciousness dawns within the mind. Har Naam Manavasai. So the goal is to achieve a state of mind called Sahaj, which is really a return to the mind's primordial condition, unaffected by any trace of ego. That state of mind is the precondition for Naam consciousness to dawn within the mind. How does one achieve that state? That is achieved when mal gavaye. Mal is the accumulated psychic residue, the ego. It is psychic residue through constant conditioning. So in Gurbani, the ego is often symbolized as mal or grime, the conditioning that actually veils reality by distorting our perception. And the method to dissolve the ego, that is to say, to reorient the ego to its primordial condition, is to assimilate the teachings of the Guru, Gurbani Sona. That's the lens. When Gurbani says Sona, it means to internalize, to heed, not just passive hearing. Gurbani should enter the mind, not as simple information which can be lost, but as a dwelling presence, as a reconditioned perception. In the second stanza after the Rahau, Kood kusat trisna agn bujhaye, अंतर सांत सहज सुख पाए, गुर कै भाणे चलै तां आप जाए, साच महल पाए हर गुण गाए, कूड़ कुसत तृष्णा अगन बुझाए. So the deception of the false ego, the inner kood, the rot, the inner rot, kusat, and craving, trisna, these are fires, the pathologies of the ego. So false narratives, maladaptive conditioning, kusat, and insatiable craving, emotional hunger, they produce agan, which is anxiety, inflammation, psychic heat. Bujhaye, agan bujhaye. These can be extinguished, not just controlled, but completely extinguished through gur ke paane challe aap jaye. To walk in Guru Pana, through the assimilation of the Guru's instruction, to adopt the Guru's worldview, which is truthfulness, to be non-reactive, humility, non-egoic. That is to say, you live in a way that dislodges the autonomy of the ego, that dislodges the compulsiveness of the ego, its tight grip. It is not annihilating your own personality, but it is dissolving this ego-driven identity, this identification with things outside. And once that happens, once these fires are extinguished, antar sant. Antar sant means your whole system calms down. The mind returns to sahaj, to its natural equilibrium. Sukhapai, well-being, comfort, becomes your default condition. So this is emotional, cognitive stability. The ego is cognitive dissonance. So such a mahal, the mansion, the palace of truth, it's not a place, it's a state of consciousness. From there, from that consciousness, one experiences reality without distortion. And from this realization flow har gun, the qualities of compassion, clarity, humility, You're embodying them. You're not just reciting them. But the Guru goes on to explain, we are in a state of manamukh. And what happens there is this. Na sabad bujhe, na jane bani, manmukh ande dukh vihani. As manmukhs, we suffer dukh vihani. Our lives are lived in sorrow. Why? Na sabad bujhe. Because we have not submitted ourselves to that enlightener Guru. We have failed to understand sabad. Na sabad bujhe, na jane bani. We don't have that discernment. They do not know how to integrate bani. In other words, there is no psychic integration. That psychic integration, the inner integration, is the entry point for wisdom, for Naam. So when your structure, this is structural ignorance. When the structure is not right, you can't build on it. Naam cannot enter when it doesn't have an entry point. And manmukh, of course, is internal blindness. Can't see. So you have to reverse this blindness. How do you do that? The Guru says, Satgur pete ta sukha paye. Only when. Pete is to give yourself up. Pet kar dena. Ta sukha paye. This is the turning point. Encountering the Satgur. Receiving the right orientation. That will give you insight into how to break through your own ego patterns. And when that happens, sukha paye, peace returns, stability. So this mechanism, the restraining of the ego, happens from within. How mein vichon thak raha hai. Thak is to stop, to create a barrier. You halt it from within. So the earlier processes in the Rahau and the two verses fail because the ego is still running the system. So you have to neutralize that through Guru orientation. In conclusion, Kisnu kahiye data ik soe, kirpa kare sabad milava hoye, mil pritam sache gun gava, nanak sache sacha pava. Kisnu kahiye data. Whom can we call the giver? Ik soe. There is only that one. Kirpa kare. Should it grace us, sabad milava hoye. It brings union with the Guru's word. So there is only one giver. And that giver is grace, not self-authored. This lays the ontological ground, if you will, beneath the psychological process. This is the mechanism of grace, union through sabad. Grace operates through the sabad. Kirpa kare sabde milava hoye. So you see, it goes hand in hand. Sabad is the active agent of union. Sabad milava hoye. Grace is sabad, because grace is within sabad, and sabad is the agency of union. And then, what is the fruit of that union? Mil Pritam Sache Gunagawa. The fruit of union is the expression of virtue. Meeting the true beloved, I sing his qualities, meaning I express his virtues. This is really the psychological signature of realization. Union with one's true nature. Restoration of original wholeness, sahaj, where fragmentation all comes together. And there is direct apprehension of reality. Perception is cleansed. And then you praise. This is not praising in the ritual sense. This is your existential expression of what you have become. You are now an instrument of divine qualities. The divine qualities that resonate through you now. So when truth aligns with truthfulness and grace operates through sabad, union then yields to lived virtue. That is the goal. Lived virtue. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.